You are a speaker. You have a big background in alcohol and drugs, from what I understand. Harm reduction.
Yeah. Preventing the use of them, not taking them. Yeah.
Richie, welcome to the Human Experience with Bree.
That's you.
That is me. I am so excited to have you here. You are just such an inspiration to me with the work that you do for mental health, for wellness, and your background in alcohol and harm reduction, and the speaking that you do. Yeah, and I just think you're amazing.
Well, that's very humbling. Thanks. It's good for my burgeoning self-esteem. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware of the concept of the show, but what we've done is we've asked our social media audience 10 questions.
About me?
For you,
okay.
Specifically. And I have them here.
Okay, rad.
So if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. You want to
Let's dive in.
Launch straight into it.
I have no idea of the order that these questions are in.
Okay, cool.
Da-da-da-da. How did you practice self-control with sobriety in a society that is heavily geared towards drinking in social settings?
Oh, okay, sure. Well, I was never really much of a drinker myself. Yeah, it's pretty well publicized. I grew up with an alcoholic parent, so I already had, I guess, an aversion to alcohol from a pretty young age. So when all my friends started drinking and doing drugs in high school, because I gravitated towards, I guess, kids on the fringes, I had a whole bunch of discord in my family life due to alcohol. So it kind of just made sense to reject what was around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a pretty young age, I think from about 15 or so, when everyone started partying. And then as I got older, I gravitated towards the hardcore scene. Hardcore is like a spin-off of the punk rock scene. And within the hardcore scene is like I guess a subculture called straight edge.
Okay,
yeah.
Straight edge.
Yeah, straight edge was a song by this dude. Well, it was a term from this dude, Ian McKay, who sang for this band called Minor Threat. And he postulated that if being punk rock is going against the grain and doing what everyone else isn't doing in a world that's constantly glorifying intoxication, and all the other high school kids are getting wasted and doing drugs and drinking and doing keg stands, and being sober is actually super punk rock. It's like super
cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, so being straight was his edge, right? To like get ahead in life.
Yeah.
And so I grew up surrounded with a lot of people who drank and a lot of people who did drugs. And I mucked around with it for a little bit, but then I started hanging out with these older guys who were cool and had cool style and were in the straight edge hardcore scene, and they really were good role models for me. And so when I'd hang out in West Auckland, people would give me a hard time for being sober, but then I'd go hang out with these dudes in the city and they would encourage me to stay sober.
Ooh. What is the one lifestyle change you made that has made the biggest impact on your life?
One lifestyle change I've made, yeah, I know.
That's difficult.
Yeah, I think starting martial arts when I was 13 years old has been like the biggest, most positive, formative choice that I made.
Yep.
Yeah, because 26 years later, martial arts is still like a true north for me.
Yep.
I got this tattoo on my leg that said "Fighting saved my life," and while I don't fight competitively anymore, it very much helped me transform from a kid who didn't have a whole lot of self-esteem and walked around looking at the ground to someone who's comfortable standing up in front of a huge audience talking about difficult things.
Guys, we've got a super close-up quote moment from Richie Hardcore.
It's not my quote.
Please own it. Tell the people.
It's Uncle Ben from Spider-Man when he tells Yeah, it's Peter Parker. It is Uncle Ben, right?
It is.
Yeah. Uncle Ben tells Peter Parker that with great power comes great responsibility. I think it's something that we all need to be mindful of.
What advice would you give to wahine women who would like their male partners to make changes?
Oh, That's a hard question.
It's very hard. Who did that?
Who would like to make changes?
Yeah, they'd like them to make some changes. How do they go about that?
I think when we want anyone to make changes, it's about trying to have a conversation with them rather than give them ultimatums and yell at them and make them feel bad.
Yeah.
I think
Do
it's
this.
yeah. No one likes being told what to do.
Nope.
No one likes being told what they don't know. But if you can draw responses out with questions, that's really good.
Have a conversation.
Yeah. Do you know how it makes me feel when you do this? Do you? Can I ask you a question? Is now a good time to talk? You know, I think a lot. Do you know, like
setting up the conversation.
Setting up the
When would be a good
conversation.
time to have a conversation for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of dudes come home from their day at work or their day at the gym and they need half an hour to decompress. And if they come in from the door and it's straight away like, you need to do this.
Yeah.
It's like not a constructive time to have that conversation.
You might not get the outcome.
Yeah, you might not get the outcomes, you probably have an argument. But I think finding space in your daily routine or your weekend or whatever to set aside to have a talk, I think that's a really beneficial approach. And then talking about placing things in feelings, like, because often if we frame things in, when you do this, it makes me feel like this, it's a blame.
Sure.
There's a blaming element to that.
You made me feel
Yeah,
this
you
way.
made me feel like that, but that's probably not that person's intention.
Yeah.
But if we can frame it as in like, I feel, so it's placing it in me in
I
this
feel
subjective
upset.
experience, when this happens, in spite of the fact that you're probably not trying to do that,
Yes.
then it's a bit more constructive and it helps the person reflect on the outcomes of their actions, right?
It makes so much sense, and it feels like such a much more open space
Yeah.
to walk into of, okay, that person's taking responsibility for their part, and they're asking me, how I feel, and they're also telling me their experience
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah, I do that with my partner. We do this thing where if one of us has got something going on, it's like, do you want practical advice or emotional support right now?
What is it that you need?
Because guys do this. Like, you'll give me a problem and I'll tell you all the practical, logical steps you need to fix that problem.
Sometimes not helpful,
Yeah, quite often not helpful, I've
but
found.
sometimes helpful.
Many failed relationships have taught me that that's not the way to go about it.
You gotta do this.
Yeah.
Cool.
But actually, you're better off just listening to the person and helping them vent or share their feelings and process their own feelings.
Just having someone listen to you is so powerful. Aw, what makes you happiest?
What makes me happiest? At the moment,
It's your question. You can do whatever you would like with it.
yeah, I don't know, that's surprisingly difficult. I don't know, I think I'm pretty happy most of the time at the moment. I think time with my stepson, it makes me really happy at the moment. Yeah, he told me he loved me this morning and that made me feel really good. When a 5-year-old whose little voice is like, I love you, Richie. And I'm off.
That is adorable.
Yeah. I think him and when his mum is not mad at me and we're getting on, like.
When you feel like you're making her happy.
Well, not making her happy. I think, any relationship, it's not about making another person happy.
Yeah.
We have to be happy in and of ourselves. But when we are in alignment,
Yeah.
then that's good. Because we all fluctuate within ourselves and that fluctuates within a relationship, right?
Oh, absolutely. Constantly.
Yeah,
it's
constantly.
quite hard to find yourself on the track of alignment, but when you do, it's just about enjoying it, that moment.
Yeah.
Of like, this is bliss right now.
Right now, yeah.
Woohoo!
Might not be tomorrow, but right
right now we're
now
good.
things are good.
So just enjoy that.
Yeah. I think when my home life's awesome, that's what makes me happiest at the moment.
Oh, that's really cool. I've got a two-pronged question.
I love a two-pronged question.
One, were your parents together growing up?
Mm-hmm.
And two, how did your upbringing influence your parenting as a stepdad? Which is cool because you just talked about your stepson.
Yeah, sure. My parents had a really dysfunctional relationship, but didn't get divorced till I was 20.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
That's a long time for dysfunction.
yeah. Yo, tell my
Wow.
therapist.
Yeah. All that money.
yeah. But you know, they didn't know what they didn't know, you know, like I don't hold any resentment towards my parents. They just had their own conditioning and programming, and I love them both, and that is what it is, you know. But because I didn't grow up with good role modeling of what a relationship is, and I'm divorced, and I made a bunch of mistakes in my first marriage. I'm really mindful about trying to be really intentional in owning my stuff. Now I'm in another long-term relationship, and in regards to how that affects my parenting, yeah, I'm real mindful to not raise my voice and swear and call names and try and resolve conflict within our relationship constructively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to learn how to do that quite explicitly, because my initial go-to was to get angry and raise my voice, and when I feel challenged emotionally, my defense is anger rather than listening. And so I've had to learn how to swallow that and just listen to things even if they make me feel uncomfortable, and accept that I don't have all the answers and no one does. And
that's okay.
And that's okay.
How can fitness help with recovering from past experiences and traumas and the way that you think?
Yeah, sure. I think fitness gives you a space to process things, and at the same time you're getting neurological reward chemicals popping off, so like serotonin and endorphins, and do you know what I mean? Like they're natural feel goods.
Physical feel goods.
Yeah, they're physical feel goods, and you do that long enough, then it can elevate your mood to some degree or stabilize your mood to some degree. And I think it also gives you like a pro-social space where drugs and alcohol and other potentially damaging pastimes aren't at the center of it.
Yeah, because it's like a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Fitness can be a sense of belonging.
Yeah,
too,
yeah, exactly.
Without
the negatives.
Yeah. What causes men to behave in a disrespectful manner towards women, such as calling them degrading names, treating them as inferior, or sexual or physical abuse? And what are some of the ways that you think you can combat this in society?
Yeah, sure. So there's a range of causatives that lead men to be physically or emotionally violent towards women. So it can start from parental role modeling, and then more broadly we need to think about cultural influences on male behavior and male expectations of what it means to be a man. And part of what society teaches us being a man means is having power over women and being sexually promiscuous, but culturally we continue to teach misogyny and sexism through our mainstream media. If you think about where we learn about sex from, it's online pornography. Like that's normalizing violence and degradation and objectification by men of women. Like speaking broadly and generally, because pornography is a huge cornucopia. Like there's anything you can imagine and a whole bunch of stuff you can't on the internet for you to jerk off to.
Yeah, I feel like it's so insidious, the culture, that it's not actually conscious.
Well, yeah, you're right.
To a degree.
No, to a degree, you know. So kids are already policing one another's behavior along gendered norms from like 4 or 5 years old. Like that's for girls, boys don't do this.
Boys don't cry.
Boys don't cry, you're a wuss, don't play with
Harden up.
those toys, harden up, be tough, you know, like those are taught to kids from a really young age by the adults around them. But then also like the cartoons they're watching or the music that might be on the radio and all the messages within that. So couple that with potentially a bad home environment that can lead men to be violent.
What aspect or part of your work is the most fulfilling?
I think speaking at schools and speaking to young people is probably the most fulfilling. Yes. Yeah, it's sick when I go talk to a school and then like a whole bunch of kids will mob my Instagram and send me messages and be like, I never thought about it like that, or I never heard anyone say that, or thank you very much. Yeah, that's really fulfilling, because if you can plant some seeds in people young, hopefully they'll grow into really good actions later in life.
Yeah, it's such a different feeling, isn't it, when you're working with teenagers?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because they haven't quite been as, what's the word?
Indoctrinated.
Yeah, indoctrinated
conditioned.
by us, or gone through, like being hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
like
they might have been.
Yeah, might have been hurt. Sorry, I just mean.
But it's not so set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have this sense of hope and optimism about
Yeah.
them in a way, just because they're younger.
Yeah, that's what I like about youth, is that there's an idealism to it that gets knocked out of them. That's why I like Greta Thunberg and all these young people who are stepping up, using their voices, because they're not jaded by
They're
life
not
experience
jaded.
yet.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a refreshing energy to young people, and if you can harness that for good things, instead of telling them to like fit in the box, then I think that's really positive and something we should nurture.
Who or what are your biggest inspirations?
I've talked about this in other interviews, but there's a dude that I met when I was 19 called Toby Morse. He sings for this band H2O. I met him when I was in New York for 3 months, back in 2000. A long time ago now.
Like 20 years
Yeah,
now.
20 years ago. But yeah, I met Toby out there. Toby sings for this band H2O, who are like a real positive, like straight edge band. Well, they're not straight edge, but he's straight edge and vegan stuff.
Cool.
And he was just a cool role model, and we've stayed friends ever since then.
Yeah.
He's a dude I looked up to. My OG kickboxing coach, this guy John Conway. He trained me for like 10 years, and I won a bunch of New Zealand titles and South Pacific titles and stuff with him. But not just the fighting, he was a real good role model about working hard and being disciplined and putting like the pursuit of pleasure to the side for the pursuit of success. I think it was a good lesson to learn young, and he was an older, cool guy that I looked up to who didn't glorify alcohol and drugs and chasing women and stuff.
Yeah.
Last question.
Last question. I know what this question is.
Do you really? Well, I don't. Yeah.
We talked about this when you first came in a little bit. Are you a vegan? And tell us more about that.
I'm not a vegan. I've been a strict vegetarian for 20 years now. So I don't eat fish, shellfish, beef, pork, chicken, animal products. So I don't eat like animal fats or gelatin or rennet. So if you had to kill it, I won't eat it. I eat I eat a largely vegan diet, but I still will eat dairy products and eggs, particularly if I'm traveling.
Right.
Yeah.
It must be tricky.
Yeah, I personally find it difficult to stay on top of my physical needs as someone who lives a pretty athletic lifestyle and eat a fully vegan diet at the moment. But I do believe veganism is the single best thing we can do for the planet.
This has been so interesting for me, and I think for other people too.
I hope so.
You're such an inspiration, and I know that might be hard to hear, but it's absolutely true.
Well, that's kind.
I love the way that you live your life, and thank you so much for coming on The Human Experience.
Well, thank you for being interested. Yo, what's up, friends of the internet? My name is Richie Hardcore. I was on The Human Experience with my good friend Bree LaRue. You should check out her YouTube channel, Bree LaRue, and see our awesome interview. We had a really great conversation. Love to know what you think of it.